worked with some fantastic choreographers here. I have to be honest with you guys, when you direct a martial arts picture, not second unit direct, but when you direct first unit, your concentration and efforts are really with the cast, with the script, with what's going on in front of the camera, the framing. The actual choreography you leave to your trusted, in my case, Luc Lafontaine or Tim Mann or Daniel Bernhardt, three of the very best in the world that I've been so graced to be able to work with. You leave it to those guys to really work with the actors and talk about technique and punching. And honestly, they know it a lot better than me. I haven't thrown a punch in anger in 30 plus years, So I leave it to them to come up with it. I'll watch through the camera. I'll be on, if there's something that I feel is a little bit lacking, I'll mention it. And sometimes they'll have felt it, but the actor didn't want to do it that way. So by me chirping in, I've helped them to say, the director really wants you to take the hit here, because quite a lot of the time you're working with actors that have an ego and they don't want to show something, and they will try and overrule what the choreographer says. So it is important that I still am involved. But I haven't had many incidents like that. So I watch the previews based on their rehearsing. I'll give all of my notes at that point in the sort of build up to shooting. And then once we get to set, I really defer to them in everything other than, performance and framing,
Like with a film like Triple Threat, for instance, it's like you're Expendables basically, and you have like so many martial artists and stunt choreographers, so many egos, so many different styles. I was wondering how you managed all that.
That's a beautiful question. It's not a short answer.
Yeah, perfect. We love long answers here.
My favorite one of all, and this is my favorite realization. It goes back to watching humans and the study of people. So I had 8 martial artists, and all of them, every single one of them had an opinion, and in their own way, each one of them, from Dominic Vandenberg through to Scott, through to Tiger Chen, Tony Jaa, is the absolute master in what they do. They are used to being the guy, whether it's in the gym or on a movie set or in the ring, who everyone defaults to. So now I have them all in one space, and in certain days I had them all sitting in chairs, and of course you could have a chaotic situation there where everyone is starting to want to have more screen time, more close-ups, doesn't feel the other person as good as them. There's Michael, we had Michael Jai White in there as well, who's a powerful personality. I had a secret weapon. I had Michael Bisping. I had the world champion at the time, and he's undisputed. And I overheard this conversation, and I'm not sure if I should mention the name of the person, but there was an actor there who started to give a little bit of advice and sort of, some thoughts on how martial arts went. And before he'd finished his sentence, glorious, wonderful Mike Bisping said, that's an utter bullshit. In that instant, the actor defaulted, probably for the first time in his life. He defaulted to the champ and laughed and said, yeah, of course, you're probably right. I knew it was going to be okay. As long as I had Mike Bisping on my side, everyone else would fall into order behind him, like a actual cohesive pecking order, and it was wonderful. We didn't have any problems at all on that show with ego, and I think I put it down to Mike Bisping, just really the tone right from the get-go. I'm the best amongst all of you. I don't care to hear about you, and I don't care to hear about you. I am simply the best here. So I will dictate how, or whether something works in real life, or any one of us is any stronger than any others. And that was it. It was done. And he also created a laughing, jovial, happy, because he's telling jokes every 30 seconds, and they're very funny ones as well. They make you hurt, they make you want to wet yourself, which is really quite an odd sensation making an action movie. But he's terrific. So he was the thing that really kept the thing flowing in terms of ego. And you're right, there are egos that often are on these things. I've become very good since then at being able to navigate that and watch it. And you have to as a director, because it can be devastating otherwise. You can get into needless combative conversations and sort of discussions that take time and energy. And ultimately, at the end of the day, all we're all trying to do is make the best possible movie, and knowing which, I've learned. But at that point, because there was just so many people, it could have been overwhelming. We had Tim Mann, who was wonderful, Iko Uwais, who does a lot of his own choreography and has his own team, and then Tony Jaa, who had his own team there as well. So Tim did a beautiful job of making sure everyone was cohesively working together and was getting what they wanted out of each fight. I told him from the get-go. I didn't tell him, we discussed it. I don't tell anyone. That's not the best way to direct. But I explained to him I wanted everyone to feel they were showing their coolest moves, the coolest technique, and also looking the best that they possibly could, and to make sure you got the input from the actors whenever possible, whether it's Scott, whether it was Tiger Chen, whether it was Jijia Yanin, any of them. As long as they felt that they were looking fantastic, I would be happy, and to choreograph the fights accordingly. So with the help of those other guys who basically do a lot of that choreography themselves, Tim really sculpted those fights and made them beautiful. I looked at the videos each time. He'd cut little previews, shot from his cell phone or his video camera. We'd look at those, I'd give my notes, and then I'd go down and meet people and give them a little sort of, attaboy, make sure everyone was happy and, getting the rehearsal time they wanted, and there were no techniques that were outrageous. We'd go and have a look at the locations together, make sure that they accepted what was on. And then we went in and shot it, and shot it pretty efficiently, I've got to say. I mean, I think there was only the fight between Scott and Eco and Jaa that took more than a day and a half or 2 days. I mean, it was really hyper efficient. The Thai crews were wonderful. The film, unfortunately, was delivered, and it was a good movie, and then they took 11 months to recut it, and it became, for me, a very upsetting experience. It was saved in the end by the fact the film was very successful financially for what it cost, but it was but directing wise, it was very upsetting. They were eager to try and get a Chinese sale, and so they manufactured elements into the story that would hopefully, in their opinion, make themselves more Sino friendly, more friendly to a Chinese buyer. As we all know now, looking back, the Chinese buyers didn't buy any of those films that were catered that way. It was a myth, and it didn't happen, and they didn't get their expensive Chinese sale. But what they did do was effectively make what I felt was an A movie into a C plus, in terms of movie. Fight scenes were fantastic, and the boys were great. But my work in that was C plus at the and that's, in my opinion, being generous. I sat in the theater scratching my head again as to why they put scenes in that completely contradicted information that had been given in the first scene. There's stuff that they shot, with Tiger's background, made no sense whatsoever. So for me, it was ultimately sort of a mixed bag. But Tim was fantastic, and the team were fantastic. Michael Bisping, I'll be forever thankful to. I thought Scott was terrific as a bad guy. I think strongest sort of characters, as the bad guy, the intelligent, thoughtful, thinking bad guy. He did it in Avengement for me as well. And I think Avengement was based a lot on the character. We took lots of little bits from the character who played in Triple Threat, I think. I read a few reviews where they said, "Oh, he did great, but Jijia Yanin was criminally underused." The character wasn't even in the movie. I created that character on set, and we put a little bit more, and I kept giving her more dialogue. The fact is that she came out of thin air when I saw her training with the guys while they were rehearsing freebies, and she was kicking a bag. I said, "Who the hell is that?" Because she's very cute and she's a girl, but she's making the bag. There's a wallop when a pro hits a heavy bag that you hear, and it's sort of it's somewhere deep in your belly. It's got to go wallump. And when a Taibo person kicks a bag, it goes crack. When I hit a bag, it goes crack. But when a professional hits a punch bag, it goes wallump like that. It makes a sort of double bang. And I was hearing it, and I looked over it, and she's tiny and very, very pretty, and she's kicking this thing, and it's sounding like someone's hitting it with a sledgehammer handle. And I said, "We have to have her in the movie somewhere, Tim." And I think she had been friends with a lot of the stunt guys, and so it was a very easy fix, and we brought her in, and that character was created literally days before filming. So she was criminally underused. It's like upsetting, but yeah, I tried very, very hard. It was really difficult to really make everyone, but that's the nature of it. For example, you do a dialogue scene between three people. You shoot a wide, and you shoot the three close-ups, but you also have to shoot the reaction close-ups as well, to tie it all together, which is So that would be 7 setups with 3 people. When you have 8 characters in a scene that all have dialogue, you have your wide, but you actually have to do 2 wides to get all of their faces, and then you do your inserts, which is 8 of them, and then you do your accompanying, overs, which is another 8 on top of that. So now, imagine every setup takes about 45 minutes. Now you're talking 3 days to do a scene that with 2 or 3 characters you'd have shot in half a day, but we're shooting for 3 days in the scene. So it was a completely new feeling for me, and just like, oh my God, this is slow. So I like the energy, especially working with guys we had a lot of guys who were not necessarily, they were more stunt and sport oriented than they were thespians. They all were trying very, very hard, but their experiences were in the gym more than they were, studying Stanislavski. And you with those kind of actors, it's the first or second take which are the best ones. They get bored and confused and lost, and they get upset at themselves if you start to go many more takes than So by the time we get into the 3rd day of doing this, a lot of the guys are like, well, they didn't know up from down, and you're just trying to keep the energy flowing in each scene. So it was quite challenging.
Right.